Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Continuing off that sort of same theme, we're going to look at the the text of Vayachel, and we're going to begin. But I would like to sort of give us a topic here that I'm going to focus on. Your body is a Mishkan, and we talked about that last week briefly. Rabbi Avner brought that up. And we're going to talk about the hidden Jewish secrets of the human form. So we're in Parshas Vayachel. It starts off at the beginning, verse 1, chapter 35. Moses then convoked the whole Israelite community and said to them, "These are the things that Hashem has commanded to you to do. On the sixth day you may work, or work may be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to Hashem. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall not kindle a fire through the settlements of Sabbat," and it goes further on. And we understand that in this text we get or there is derived the melachot for Shabbat, not to build, not to make, not to create, not to separate. All of those concepts in the 39 mitzvahs that are in or prohibitions that are in the Shabbat regulations for a Jew. Obviously, we as non-Jews are not held to that standard, but there is a tremendous meaning behind this. There is a really solid idea that if you begin to see, as we know, that our body is a Mishkan, then we can learn some tremendous lessons in our own spiritual, physical, and emotional development. And this is why I think it's important for us to focus on this, especially on a regular basis when we come across this text. Now, in Judaism, the human body is often compared to the Mishkan, as both serve as a dwelling place for the divine presence. God dwells within us. The divine spark dwells in us. The Shechinah of God dwelled in the Mishkan. And just as the Mishkan was a physical space where God's presence rested, among the Israelites, the human body is seen as the vessel for the soul, and a place where holiness can be expressed through our actions and our mitzvahs. So as important as the Mishkan was in the wilderness and the temple to the people of Israel, so is all the Jews in the world and the people of the nations who conduct their actions in such a way that we radiate the holiness of God into the world. We infuse it into the world. Now, this idea is reflected in various Jewish texts and commentaries, and we'll focus on that as we go along. Here are some parallels between the Mishkan and the human body. First, the Holy of Holies, Kodesh HaKodeshim, the mind and heart. So the Holy of Holies sort of represents the mind and the heart, or the seat of the soul itself. The Holy of Holies contained the Ark of the Covenant, which held the tablets of the law. This sacred space is likened to the mind and heart of a person where divine wisdom and consciousness reside. Just as the high priest would enter into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, and a person must cultivate inner sanctity by aligning their thoughts and emotions with holiness. I was asked a great question the other day from one of our Filipino brothers in the Noahide community about prayer and meditation and the best way to approach it. We talked about the Siddur. We talked about the Noahide Siddur that they have from the World Noahide Center. And we talked about the Breslev concept of Hitzdarabut, personal prayer, in which you engage with God in personal prayer. So the verse that comes to mind, it says that we should meditate on it day and night. What does that mean? It means our intent is set in that holy place, in that sanctified place in our mind. Now, sometimes we combine all things like the brain, the mind, the conscious into one big mass, but in reality, these are are separate parts of the human body. The brain sort of runs the body. The mind or the conscious is the one that's connected to the divine, and these interplay within our body. So our mind is used in our meditation and prayer to connect to the holiness that is within us, the conscious or divine conscious that we have, or divine soul that we have. And when we look at science today, we understand that they have discovered that there is non-local consciousness in quantum field that seems that every human conscious is connected to, and they've been doing some tests. Now, we all understand that this divine energy that exists within us also exists in with the holiness of God, and is infused in all of creation. Knowing that, know that your body as a Mishkan also is connected to God's divine presence. Now, the Holy of Holies is a place of divine wisdom. Let's look at a couple of sources. The Tanya says in Likutei Amarim, chapter 2, says the Alter Rebbe explains that the divine soul resides primarily in the brain and extends to the heart, as I was explaining. Just as the Holy of Holies contained the ark which held the Torah, the human mind should house divine wisdom. Now, we can talk about how important later on in our questions and answers in our discussion. How do we maintain that central or synchronicity between the mind and the soul, constantly engaging in the presence of Hashem? Now, there's another one in Talmud Berachot 33a. The merciful one desires the heart. This suggests that this, as the Holy of Holies was the holiest place, the heart, the seat of emotions and spiritual intention, is the central place of serving Hashem. Let's look now at the menorah. We see later on in the chapter, they talk about the menorah. These are the eyes, or represents the eyes. The menorah brought light into the Mishkan, which, like the eyes, bring light and perception into a person's life. This is why we have a strong concept that we learn from Torah Judaism, that we should guard our eyes. We should be careful of what we observe and how we take things into our life. One of the ways of constantly meditating on the things of God day and night is that very thing, is if you see something or observe something that could have a systemic effect on the neshama, on the soul, and upon the mind, that would cause us to be redirected or lose our state of purity before God, we have to rectify that. Now, the way one sees the world is very important, whether with purity and holiness affects the spiritual state. Similar to how the menorah illuminated the sacred space in the tabernacle. Let's look at a couple of references here, or sources, that the eyes are the light, are light and vision. Proverbs 20:27 says this: the soul of man is the lamp of God. The menorah, which illuminated the Mishkan, parallels the eyes that bring perception and spiritual awareness into a person's life. The Zohar even says this in Terumah 143b. The Zohar connects the 7 branches of the menorah to the 7 apertures of the head: the eyes, the 2 ears, the nostrils, the 2 holes in the nostrils, and the mouth, which many of us are quite large, emphasizes the role in bringing divine light to the world. It is these things that interact and bring divine light into the world: what you hear, what you perceive, what you smell, and what you speak out. This is why our words are very important. Let's look now at the golden altar, which I would bring it to the eyes, or to the nose and the breath. That the incense offering created a pleasing aroma, symbolizing the breath and life of prayer. We understand that the Almighty doesn't have a set of nostrils like us. So what does he mean? What does he mean when he says your offerings are like a pleasing aroma? This means that the prayer that is expressed, the words that are expressed, and the intent behind it is like a beautiful incense to the Almighty. Never think that your prayers are empty or that they have no effect. You don't necessarily have to have emotions attached to your prayers. It's just you need to know that your intent, that God can sense and hear and smell your prayers. The breath represents the soul, as seen in Genesis 2, verse 7. It says, God breathed life into Adam. A person's words and prayers are like incense. They should be directed toward God and be directed toward things that are holy. The golden altar, that is the incense and prayer, is what it means. The golden altar. What is the golden altar? Genesis 2:7 also says, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. This verse emphasizes the connection between breath and the soul, paralleling the incense offering altar, which produces a holy fragrance. And this is found in the Talmud in Berachot 43b. The sense of smell is considered the most spiritual of senses. And we understand that the sense of smell also is very powerful in our physiological uh, being. We can smell, for example, a lemon and our mouth waters. It triggers something within the brain. We can smell a piece of cake, cheesecake. Think of your favorite cake and you smell it. The other day I was driving down the road and I saw a sign for an ice cream flavor and it was raspberry cheesecake flavor. And I'm like, I didn't even have to smell it before I knew. Now that would be good because I'm driving. I was like, whoa, now that sounds good. So you know that it triggers the mind. So if something like food can trigger your mind, think about seeing your body as the Mishkan and how is it expressed when you bring in things that are sweet, that are beautiful, that are holy, that is not tainted by sin. You are elevating the Mishkan, your temple, to a place to where the divine presence can freely operate within your life. Now, uh, we see this that as it was, for example, the only sense that it was not tainted by sin, or before it was tainted by sin, was the tree of knowledge. This aligns with the role of incense offering in bringing atonement and divine connection. Let's look at the table of showbread. That's there. That represents the mouth and sustenance. The table in the Mishkan held 12 loaves of showbread, representing sustenance and blessing. This corresponds to a person's mouth, which takes in nourishment, but also has the power of speech, either to elevate or to degrade. Sometimes we miss the understanding, and I know I have many times, and to say, for example, a blessing over your water. And we understand that water, saying positive things and positive affirmations and blessing to water, when you drink it, the water's been affected by it. Can you imagine what it does to your body when you drink a water or something that has water that you have blessed to Hashem, and that it is imbued with that positive essence. We've seen this in tests by the scientists, especially I can't remember his name, the scientist from Japan, that talks about the effect of sound, blessing, curses on water, rice, etc. It's amazing. Now, the table of showbread, or the mouth and sustenance, Talmud Yoma 39a, it says a person's table is like the altar. The food we eat and the words we speak must be sanctified, just as the showbread in the Mishkan. It represents divine sustenance and blessing. Here's another source. Deuteronomy 8:3 says, man does not live by bread alone, but everything that proceeds out of the mouth of God. This highlights the spiritual nature of sustenance. Just as the showbread was a physical yet holy offering. It's an amazing idea. Nathaniel and I have been in conversation about nutrition and understanding the power of eating properly for your body so that it can serve Hashem. And I heard a physician the other day say something that makes sense. Just as he wasn't making the sense to this, but I'm going to explain. I'm going to tie it in. Just as offerings need to be unblemished and from a single source, directed by God, it had to be kosher and it need to be inspected and then offered. And when it's put on the offering, that is being elevated, and so are you. As the animal is elevated into the smoke and the steam, so are we. Our souls are elevated in that. So imagine this doctor said, if you want to have a healthy life, I can tell you, all the supplements in the world and all the diets and all that stuff. He says, if you would only eat single sourced food, meaning you can combine them. Whatever the food is, if it's single source, it comes from a cow, comes from a plant, comes from whatever, it's singly sourced. If you bring that together and put it in your body, then your body will naturally begin to function at its highest level. It's an interesting idea. And he said, and something else to remind me, he took up a back of a Doritos chip bag with the ingredients. And he says, here's another thing, only eat ingredients that you could show your great great grandmother. And if she could read the ingredients and know what it is, then you can eat it. But if you don't know what the ingredients are, don't eat it. So this sort of reminds us of bringing a sacrifice to Hashem, that if something has been added to or a mark on an animal that is coming to a sacrifice, it's not acceptable. However, we, including myself, eat food that is not really acceptable to the overall well-being of my body. So it's important. This is about mind, body, and soul. Now, the outer altar, this altar sort of represents the digestive system and offerings. Let's look at this. The outer offering was where sacrifices were brought, akin to how a human body processes food. We're told that when we eat a plant, we are elevating that plant. When we eat meat, we're elevating that meat. For example, when a cow eats the grass, the cow elevates the grass. When the grass consumes the minerals out of the soil, the grass is elevating the minerals. Everything has this cyclical revelation and understanding that the divine is infused in everything, and even to the lowest level can come up to a higher level. And we see that this process of food and it transforms into energy. The act of eating with mindfulness and gratitude is likened to offering sacrifices in service. So when you eat, this is why in Judaism they say a prayer over the food before and after their meal. Even for a Noahide, you don't have to say that specific prayer that Jewish people pray, but with intent and a conscious effort, you eat your food with a sense of gratitude. This outer altar, described in sources as like the digestive system. Leviticus 17:11, it says, for the soul of the flesh in the blood and for the soul of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls. The digestive process transforms food into energy, just as the altar transforms offerings into spiritual elevation. In the Talmud, Shechinah 27a, it says, now that there is no temple, a person's table atones for him. Eating with mindfulness is likened to temple service. Beautiful. Let's look at the pillars and walls representing the skin and the skeleton. The structure of the body, according to Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer 3, the Mishkan was a microcosm of the world, including the human form. The beams and the coverings provided structure, just as the bones and the skin give form to the body. Isn't this interesting? And Tikkuni Zohar 336. The Mishkan beams are connected to the Hebrew word for falsehood, indicating that the body should not be an empty shell, but a place where truth resides. There are a lot of people in society that are empty Mishkans, empty tabernacles. Nothing dwells in it but negative and evil. And we saw in the past from the study of our scriptures that in the time of the prophets, they railed against the Israelites for losing their insight into their responsibilities of the temple. For example, the idea that offerings had become despised by the Holy One because their heart, their soul, their intent was not in it. Now, the pillars and walls representing the skeleton and skin, the structure of the Mishkan was upheld by beams and curtains, just as the person's body has a skeletal structure and the skin that forms a protective boundary. The body houses the soul, just as the Mishkan housed the divine presence. The pillars and walls, or the skeleton and skin, found in sources is this. Perkei di Rabbi Eliezer repeats that very same thing that I repeated a while ago about the structure. Let's go on. A Kohanim and priest. Let's look at this. The soul's guidance. The Kohanim serve in the Mishkan, ensuring the purity and proper function. Similarly, the soul serves as a spiritual guide for the body, directing a person toward holiness. This comparison reminds us that just as the Mishkan required a constant care and dedication and purity to be a fitting dwelling for the Holy One, so must a person strive to refine their actions and thoughts and character to be a vessel for the divine presence in the world. That is a powerful idea to understand that we are like a Mishkan, that we are a Mishkan. And in the day of redemption, every human being will discover what it's like to feel to feel the human form with the divine presence. And it is such an honor to be able to study Torah and to elevate ourselves and to focus on intent and to meditate in prayer, remembering that we are like a Mishkan. So that concludes my shiur, and we're going to go right into questions, comments, answers, fears, doubts, unbeliefs, whatever.